Like every winter, this year also a thick fog has enveloped Delhi and the crisis is being seen in the aviation sector. The Prime Minister flight was also delayed. Apart from that, over 100 commercial flights have been cancelled and many of them have been delayed. Also, the airport have started to operate on CAT 3 basis and they have used it as a landing approach. So, what is CAT 3 and can it help flights land safely under the poor visibility condition that we see generally associated with the fog? Let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, first of all, to give you context of this particular topic, if you look at the severe smog, we can say fog, as you can say, is nothing but a small microscopic water droplets that condense near the surface, and when they mix up with the smoke that is coming out due to vehicular emissions, due to burning of fossil fuels and all, it creates smog like condition, and this basically is what has enveloped Delhi and National Capital Region NCR region as such. The effect of fog was such that even Prime Minister Modi's flight, he was on a visit to Oman, was delayed by over an hour. Over several hundreds of flights have been cancelled and 300 plus have been delayed only at the Delhi airport itself. Now, obviously, it also has led to a pollution crisis because AQI has crossed at more than 500 in the severe category is what we can say Delhi's air currently line. Now, impact on Delhi airport is seen because, as you know, the Delhi is where out of all the airports that you have in India, the major airport talk about, Delhi obviously suffer from this problem every winter. Visibility reduces significantly whenever you have development of fog or a smog like conditions, and operation has shifted to CAT 3 protocols because of the low visibility and poor visibility. So, let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, obviously, aviation ministry, you can understand the interruption in the aviation sector is so intense that government and especially Ministry of Aviation has to come here, and Ministry of Civil Aviation has issued a heavy fog alert to the passengers, to the airlines, and also safety has been declared as a top priority because obviously if a flight is about to land or take off during this heavy dense fog like condition, the possibility of aviation disasters can increase manifold. Advisory has been issued for passengers also to check the flight status before coming at the airport so that they will not have to go through unnecessary problems. And also airlines and ATC, they have begun to coordinate in a better manner, in an integrated manner. Now, advisory was, if you look, Indigo, Air India, they have warned of delays and cancellations. We know that in last couple of weeks, India's aviation sector has faced a lot of challenges and problems, especially because of the new FDTL norm that was introduced earlier. For example, Indigo was affected, and again dense fog is also affecting the overall what you can call as the operations of Indigo. Now, by if you are liking our video, ensure to hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel for such helpful content. Now, we talk about the proactive cancellations is also a strategy that airlines have followed in recent times to avoid congestion, refund, rebooking and all that has been done by the airline. Now, question that comes is why does smog affect the flight? Because today we have developed so good technologies that help us to land even without understanding and without looking outside of the airline window or aircraft window. So, why still smog is affecting the flights? So, no matter how good our technology is, still the fighter, you talk about the flight pilots, they have to basically depend on the visual cues which they cannot get during the dense fog like condition. For example, smog drastically reduces what in the aviation term is called as RVR, that stands for runway visual range. That means how far you can see on the runway, especially the lighting strips that is put on the runway, to what extent it is visible from the aircraft, that is called as RVR. So, because of the drastic reduction in RVR, a flight cannot take off easily, flight cannot land easily, and also taxiing, that is movement on these airstrips, and also further in the at the airport runway itself becomes quite challenging and difficult for every airline as such. Plus, low visibility is not only creating problems and issues for the landing or taxiing of aircraft, it also increases risk many times, and that is because pilots have fewer external visual cues. They cannot understand how far they are from a particular structure, whether there is any other flight on the runway or nearby to them or not, and at the same time ground movement becomes quite difficult because they have to be very careful as such. At the same time, runway incursion, higher chances of runway incursion occur. Runway incursion is when two different flights might come on the same path, or a flight might come in contact with the different vehicles you have also running on the runways and all, near the runways and all, and landing operations become extremely time consuming because unless and until a pilot is not sure, he cannot, or ATC is not sure, for example, they cannot give the landing right. or landing permission as such. Now, it is in this context a very what we call as popular term that is being used these days is the Cat 3. Now, Cat 3 is simply a short of category. So, it is basically category 3, which is believed to be one of the most advanced instrument landing system. Instrument landing system here means that by the help of instrument certain technology, a pilot is able to land the aircraft without having any problem. Now, it enables the aircraft to land in the poor or even near zero visibility, because category 3 itself is divided into category 3A, B and C, which is used depending on how bad the visibility is. Overall, if we talk about this particular landing system, the instrument here basically uses several different components. For example, first of all, it uses high intensity runway lighting. These runway lighting increases the RVR, that is the runway visual range for the pilot as such. At the same time, these instrument also uses radio signals to basically interact with the aircrafts and pilots such. Essential, it becomes very essential during the dense fog condition, because by the continuous receiving and transmitting of radio signals, a perfect idea of where the aircraft is, how far it is from the runway, and this can be ensured as such and can be understood. Now, the question is that how the instrument landing system or ILS work. Now, we have discussed that overall it uses two radio beams, and there are two different, basically we can call as method of using these radio beams. One is what we call as localizer, that provides horizontal guidance. Horizontal guidance means how far a particular aircraft is from the runway strip or runway strip as such. At the same time, we also have a glide slope that provides vertical guidance to the aircraft. So, with the help of both horizontal guidance and vertical guidance, if you try to understand, because when aircraft is trying to basically, suppose you have aircraft and if it is trying to land, and there you have the running strip as such. For safe landing, it need to ensure two things. First, it need to be accurately aware about how far vertically it is up from the ground. At the same time, it need to be also aware about horizontal distance on the running strip, or how far away the aircraft is from the running strip. So, by using both localizer and glide slope, this information can be given or transferred to the pilot. So, it basically help pilot align aircraft precisely with the runway, so that do not overshoot the runway or that do not have any kind of hard landing like situation. Also, it reduces reliances on visual reference, that is all that we can say is obviously missing in the case of dense fog like situation. Now, if you look at the key concept that is involved in the ILS system, one is called as DH. Now, DH refers to decision height, that is referring to the lowest height or lowest altitude where pilot must decide to land or abort. If pilot is not sure whether he is able to see the runway properly, whether he is able to land at the exact place on the runway where he wanted, so that there is no chance of overshooting the runway and all that. So, this decision has to be made at a certain height from the ground, and this is called as decision height. At the same time, second is called as RVR, we have discussed, that is the runway visual range, the distance pilot can see, the distance at which pilot can see the runway lights or marking as such. This is something, both of this becomes extremely crucial, especially in the dense fog like situation. If RVR is found to be below a particular threshold, in that case most pilots abort landing. And this is where the category 3 systems comes into picture, because even in the low RVR like condition, by not having visual cues and visual understanding around themselves, pilot can still use the radio waves to understand their vertical and horizontal distance from the ground. Now, if you look at the categories of ILS, it is divided into various different categories, such as 4 categories we have: Cat 1, Cat 2, within Cat 3 then we have multiple categories as such. Now, higher category of ILS system is used if the visibility becomes lower and lower. That means even within category 3, obviously category 3C will be used if visibility is almost, we can say, 0 in that extent. So, Cat 3 allows operations even in extreme fog like condition as such. Now, in India, the problem is that Cat 3 compliance is something that we are not being seen by the flight operating companies as such. For example, aircraft, only those aircraft which are equipped with Cat 3 system can use this particular system to land as such. Now, apart from that, it is also not possible that all pilots will be able to utilize this system to land safely, because pilots have to undergo rigorous specialized training to land under the Cat 3 guidance system as such. And training cost for each pilot comes out to be about 10 lakh rupees, and many times the flight operating companies or training companies, they do not want to incur such a higher cost, and that is why compliance is relatively lower in case of India. Now, not all Indian end pilots are certified, that is also one problem. And secondly we have is the DGCA, that is Directorate General of Civil Aviation, enforces strict training norms. So, because of this, we have less number of pilots who are able to fly and land aircraft under Cat 3 system, and that is why many times we see that despite having such system, the flights are either delayed or cancelled at all. Now, the question comes that why during the winter season itself the chances of landing becomes very basically we can say the risk during the landing phase or takeoff phase becomes higher. The reason is because if you try to understand an aircraft flies through or move through three different phases during its journey. First is called as takeoff phase, second is we can call it as the stable phase, where most of aircraft complete 70-80% of its distance or journey, and then again you have the landing phase. So, if you look at the overall flight time, only 4% of flight time is what landing phase constitute, but in this 4%, if you look at the global data, we see that fatal accidents, if you take data from Boeing, which is one of the major airline, we can talk about, that is being used, major flights aircraft that is being used by majority of the companies there. So, in the 4% of landing phase, 49% of fatal accidents have occurred. That is why this is very crucial phase, and this is where maximum safety have to be ensured. And taking this into consideration, the government of India has finally decided, DGCA has decided to allow the Cat 3 ILS based approach to be used by the flights to land at the particular aircraft as such. That's all about this particular video. If you like it, please hit the like button, share with the aspirants, as a subscribe channel for more content. Thank you very much.